Hey there! Do you want to learn Reiki therapy without an attunement? In this episode, I'm going to show you how you can start working with Reiki and more just by watching YouTube videos. You'll still have to buy yourself cake though. Cake, Reiki or cake? 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 Reiki or cake? Hello there and welcome to Roman Nose. When I'm not eating cake, I like to change the direction in which I'm facing because, like a sunflower, I am consistently facing towards the sun, which is interesting when the sun is below the horizon. Now, if you think about that too much, you'll discover a mental image that will haunt your dreams. One of the most asked about aspects of Reiki therapy is the act of attunement, which is integrally associated with many forms of Reiki modality. But are attunements necessary for practicing Reiki therapy? Reiki students are usually taught that without attunement, they cannot connect to Reiki. But guess what? You can. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how. Let us journey back to 19th century Japan, where a young man named Mikao Usui went up a mountain. No, not that one. Mount Kurama in Kyoto. Whilst up the mountain, something amazing happened. No, not that. Whilst meditating, Usui experienced a great white light that entered him through the... Oh, hang on a minute. We're not telling that story anymore. Okay, so the latest revision is that he already knew about it before he went up the mountain. Okay? Here is the challenge with a mimetic therapy like those associated with Reiki. They rely on history. History that can be and is rewritten over and over and over again. People have conflicting, often polarising viewpoints and will defend these ferociously if contradicted. The fact is, the Usui Reiki community accredits Mikao Usui as discovering his Reiki method in the late 19th century. He may or may not have gone up a mountain, and may or may not have been a Christian missionary, and may or may not have enjoyed a slice of cake. All we can say is what we know now. Whether it be historical or contemporary, what we know now is all we have. History will change. Like maths, what we were taught will change. And what we know now will change. But what we can say is that Usui Reiki was developed in Japan in the 19th century and early 20th century. Beyond that, anything else is merely a matter of conjecture, of belief system or perspective. The practice was originally a spiritually based philosophy with connections allegedly to Tendai Buddhism and Shintoism. It then shifted towards a more medical bias by Dr. Hayashi in the 20th century and completely altered for a Western audience by Mrs. Takata later in the 20th century. To understand how the shifting sands of history affect our appreciation now of the attunement process, we need to look at the context through which the idea of attunement was developed. In the 19th century social perspective, it tended towards accepting one's position, that a person in the 19th century was born into a life a situation or circumstance that was rigidly adhered to in status and expectation. Our ancestors couldn't change anything because they were told things could not be different. In the 19th century perspective, they valued being the best you could be in terms of the status and the standing you were born into. The original teaching of Reiki, as taught by Mikao Usui, was believed to be known as Reiju empowerments. These empowerments were conducted regularly by the Usui Reiki master for their students. Each time, the onus was to aspire to embodying your connection to Reiki for spiritual purpose. This is who you are, and you can be a better version of who you are by empowering yourself with Reiki. The 20th century saw a rise in pioneering spirit, dramatic change, social unrest, political uprising, and the values of strength, patriotism, and power were adopted. Our relatives lived through 2 world wars in the name of those things, and the world changed, fundamentally changed. Being empowered towards your lot in life was no longer what people wanted. They wanted more, bigger, better, greater. They wanted to be richer, happier, more powerful than others. And so, in terms of making Usui Reiki more appealing to people, attunement became the way of creating an exclusive club of people who were in the know, who also had the power to let others in on the secret. How 20th century is that? And it works, which is why Reiki became so popular. This sense of hierarchy is very significant in modern Western Usui Reiki, levels 1, 2 and 3. It's mirrored in the first version of Celtic Reiki, 1, 2 and 3. And in my slicing and consuming of cake, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, it's all gone. So many of the issues we now face in the 21st century stem from a need to break away from the 19th and 20th century values, while so many people resist that change. People across the world are at war, replicating the horrors our ancestors faced, and war is not the answer. Specifically, if we want different results from what our ancestors got, we need different solutions. In terms of Reiki practice, in Celtic Reiki, vReiki, karmic Reiki, and every aspect of one therapy, we no longer work with attunements, for these are an obsolete remnant of the last century. We establish relationships based on our holarchy over hierarchy. In other words, the mutual experience of orientation and calibration. So when you are learning vReiki, for example, the trainer will orientate towards a Reiki awareness, shifting from conscious focus to degrees and specific perspectives of Reiki focus, such as I'm doing right now. The student then calibrates to that awareness, to discover it, and then learns it through orientating themselves towards their experience of those same degrees and perspectives of Reiki. The trainer then calibrates to the student's perspective, and so on. When the orientation calibration process between trainer and students balances in a harmonious experience for both, the process is complete. And this is what's happening right now if you have proactively calibrated to the orientation I am offering through just talking about it and dancing. Think of this as a conversation. I say hello, you say hello, I say look at this, what do you see? You say I see this, and I reply that's very interesting, did you notice that? Oh no, you respond, but I do now, and did you see this aspect behind that? Well, I never, I say. You get the gist. Anyway, by the end of this conversation, we have an agreement about what we've just been looking at. You've learnt, I've learnt, and we now possess a shared perspective of Reiki. More than this, the driven student can calibrate to every perspective the trainer has ever experienced from all their students. So when I orientate, you can potentially calibrate to any aspect of that orientation I've ever conducted and every calibration I've ever experienced. It's magic. This is a 21st century way of evolving together, sharing through connection and community and communication. All the aspects of our 21st century life are threaded through our experiences of the world at this moment. Now imagine how scary that is to somebody who uses Reiki therapy as a form of control or power. What might their response be to changing from attunements to orientation calibration?
Lining up his nose into the top.
No, it's not that one. Well, actually, yeah, it is that one. As an innovative, holistic and progressive Reiki therapist who is inclusive and embraces diversity, orientation and calibration offer you ways to develop your Reiki modality and knowledge through profound shared experience. Some Reiki therapists prefer the purest approach of 19th century Usui Reiki mastery. It just resonates better with them. Others desire that sense of authority the 20th century Usui Reiki mastery offers them. It just clicks for them. And then there are those who seek real human connection without so much of the clandestine dogma of old. 21st century orientation and calibration offers us nothing to hide behind. No power over anybody else, no better than anybody else, no my way is the right way attitude to overcome. It's just you and me sharing perspective and growth together, being vulnerable and developing trust as equals in shared delight. And just in case one might be thinking, hey, do I detect a note of sarcasm in your view of non-21st century practices? I'm British. I diminish everything with sarcasm, including myself. Have you not seen me on the floor with alpacas?
Twack-a-geddon! Floof, floof.
And that's the point. Empowerments and attunements make people feel important, which makes those practices popular and widespread norms. And if they work, they work. And it's not for me to tell anybody whether they mustn't seek the historical purity of Reiki practices or the quick fix, quick win power mongering of the most popular forms of Reiki modality. My approach is not aimed at diminishing anybody. My approach is aimed squarely at outdated attitudes and philosophy that cause common Reiki practices to be limiting. that hinder people from being everything they can be. And yet only you can know if a Reiki philosophy is limiting you or inspiring you. If my words cause a reaction of anger or indignance, I recommend exploring why that reaction is there. Are you equally aware of how Reiki modalities need an upgrade? The traditional constructs don't work for me, and if they don't work for you either, come across to the dark side. We have cake. Lots and lots of cake. So how do you calibrate? Well, I offer a whole range of tools for that, and will share those with you in future episodes. So please subscribe, and I'd love a little likey. Let's get started now with some basics. When you recognise a sound on the edge of hearing, or see a vague shape in the corner of your vision, or feel a sensation that you can't quite describe, the response to this is to hone in on that experience. Pay absolute attention and focus right in on making sense of it, or embodying that sense to make it more tangible. The way to calibrate to Reiki modalities, in fact, any energy therapy modality, essences, vibrational therapy, and so much more, is to sense a shift internally. The way you would make a sensory experience or sensation more definite. Do the same with that internal shift. Sense the sense and open up to it, whilst avoiding any naysaying or closing down from what you are experiencing. The more you go into the shift, the more you are calibrating. And it is a proactive process. You take it where you want to take it. In this episode, I've been orientating towards an initial Reiki connection. So re-watch as many times as you like, sensing beyond what you see on the screen and hear through the speakers. Focus solely on your inner experience and notice the shift, no matter how slight at first. It's so easy to filter it out or ignore it. People do that all the time. But if you proactively and consistently calibrate, it will become markedly more obvious. Not only in this video, but in all the videos on all the channels. Everyone has orientations included. You may even be able to recognise the different modalities presented. Let me know in the comments what insights you're gleaning from calibration, and remember to subscribe for further guidance on orientation and calibration. Now, and always, eat cake, enjoy your Reiki experiences, and be enchanted.